Hello, welcome back. This is episode number 16 of the Indie Gaming X podcast. And this week, we have Aaron from Midnight Fair Games on the show. If you're new to the show, this is where we interview indie developers and get them to tell their story about the game they're making and how they've got to the stage they're at. So hopefully, you may discover some cool games that you've never heard of. And if you're a developer, it's a good chance for you to come on the show and just tell everyone about the game that you've made. So I'm going to cut this intro pretty short because this is probably the longest episode of all time. I've tried to cut it down as much as possible, but I just had a great time chatting to Aaron. It was fantastic. So let's jump into the episode, and I hope you enjoy. Let's make a start on this week's episode, and it's been quite a long intro. Unfortunately, anyone listening has not heard the last 2 hours of discussions about everything but gaming. So we thought we'd probably just record the gaming part for you. So welcome. For the first time I've spoken to you. This is strange. Welcome, Aaron. This is the Indie Gaming X podcast. Hello.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. It's been quite a short time we've been talking.
Yeah, just a brief conversation we've had.
Brief little chat.
Not quite sure what's happened there. But anyway, we're on. Hello, welcome. So we are going to run through these questions and let's see where we go. Let's start with the obvious one. Tell us who you are and what your game is called.
Okay, so my name's Aaron and I'm from Midnight Fair Games. And my game is called a Dungeon Scale. Was that a short enough answer? I think that was good.
That was very on point. I mean, I know we had a waffle meter.
I'll do my absolute best. I know you've got to edit this, so
thank you so much. Okay, then let's go in a little bit more detail because it was all right. So
I've got plenty for the other questions. So
so we've got the first one covered. Great. Question 2. Yes. We'll go all over the place. Don't worry. So okay, so Dungeon Scale, and how long have you been developing Dungeon Scale?
Okay, so Dungeon Scale came about in just about the end of last year, I think, probably around November-ish, I'd say. So I think overall, it would probably been about a 8-month development process.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, it's quite short. I think it's fairly good for what I've accomplished. I think for that time frame, I think given that I'm a one-man band, that there has been some people assisting, but yeah, mainly most of it was done myself.
Blimey. Okay, so what type of game are we talking about here? What style is it, and what you're using to develop it? All of those things.
Okay, all right. So Dungeon Scale is a local couch multiplayer game which allows you to battle against up to 4 of your close friends or family members and it's a platformer game. And the idea is that you've got to get to the top of a dungeon, kill a few monsters and grab a few collectibles, but you've got to be the first to the top. So that's the main aim of the game. And then you've got in between each level, you have a score screen, and then you've also got a shop where you can buy different items. And it was developed on Game Maker.
Game Maker. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it is literally just I mean, obviously, I've seen it and played a little bit myself. The idea is you are literally starting at the bottom of the screen, and you have dungeon. You have a series of platforms and traps and stuff to get through to get to the very top of the screen. And is it the first person to get there wins, or is it a case of high scores or things to collect?
Yeah, so basically, I've tried to. The scoring is there's a bit of balance in there. So winning is number one. You get the most points for winning the round, which is getting to the top without dying, which is something that happens quite often in the game because the traps and the rest of it, everything's positioned to give a challenge. So you can't get a health pickup or a gold pickup or ammo pickups without having to go through some sort of challenge, whether it be a breakable block or a falling platform or some spikes. So there is the thing that if you go through and you carefully collect everything, you can also win the round. So there's that aspect as well.
Okay.
But the complicating factor is I've built in some mechanics whereby if you are winning, or you are the lead, or you are the last person alive, the traps and the monsters start increasing their speed and challenge level. So you can't just sit there all day and wait for everybody else to die, and you'll have a good time of it, especially in the harder levels, because the scaling goes up. That's the whole the trick of the name, is scaling for going up, and scaling for the traps and the
Oh,
monsters and things like that as well. So
I like what you did there.
yeah, it came to me in an idea, and it was a fairly simple implementation. Yeah, I mean, fairly simple if you don't code like I do. So
Okay, so that's actually quite you've got quite a lot going on there, really, because it's not just it's more tactical than I think you really. When you first see the game, it seems like a race to the top, simple. I want to say platformer because it kind of is, but it's actually quite a lot of tactics involved. Because if you are up in front, you're going to start thinking, "Have I got time to slow down to collect some more coins or whatever?" But if I do that, there's some spikes over there, which I always fall foul of.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's definitely the case. I think playing it, because as I was telling you before, I tested it mainly with my kids and my partner, and that's all skill levels. Like my son and I always compete at games, and I mean it's always a race between me, him, and my daughter as to who's the best. Whereas my partner, she's not much into games, so she the fact that she could play it and relatively compete with us, and it was the idea I was going for was, I always love games like Towerfall, and especially games like Tricky Towers, where
mhm.
Tricky Towers is a wonderful game. I don't know if you've ever played that
Yep,
before.
no, it's great. I played it with my son as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if you notice, I've played many hours on the game, and if you notice, even the gravity and the way the blocks fall, I think that they've got a scaling on that even. So if you're someone who constantly wins, you'll find that gravity, you fall afoul of gravity far more than if you're losing.
Oh,
So it's like
interesting.
there's the scaling on it is so on point. It really is. Like them, we play it all the time with me and my kids, and it's like the amount of times that one person dominates is very rare. Like, and it's always, I always love the fact it's when you're having your best day. That's what I wanted to get out of the game, is even if you're not great at the game, you can't do the harder areas of the dungeons, go through the traps to get to the chests or something like that. You still have a good chance to win. If you play your best game and you're at your level, you should win. That was what I was aiming for, and I think I've got pretty close with it.
Yeah, and I mean that's very much the reason that Mario Kart was so much fun to play. Because if you're in last place, you get the blue shell, you get all the stars, don't you? You get all the shiny stuff. If you're first, you just get banana skins.
I have to diverge from you here a little bit, Richard. I was a Sega Genesis boy myself. I know we're about the same age, but I didn't
What?
get much Mario Kart in my time. I think it was something I missed. Yeah, I know. It was something, but we had Road Rash, which was a bit tougher. As cool kids.
Yeah, you grew up on the rough side of
You could
town.
move
Okay,
each
fair enough.
other off the bikes, and with chains and all
I
sorts.
remember. I loved Road Rash. It was great. I actually bought the new
Oh, it was
one. Did you buy the
fantastic.
new
Yeah.
one?
I didn't get the new one. I didn't I wasn't impressed by the reviews, and I think it's one of those games you've got to sort of, I buy more cooperative games on, my PlayStation than I do on the PC, just because my kids are my main co-op friends. So, but now that I know you've got a copy, I might have to go out there and get one.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
We
Um,
can have a Sega versus Nintendo fight.
but that is actually really interesting. It's the same with like, okay, Sega Rally. That also had that catch up mode as well,
True.
where if you were behind, you'd get that nice little slipstream that will boost the speed. Oh, I don't know if many games do that anymore. I actually haven't paid attention. They may all do it. I don't know, but the helping the loser is
I
an
think it's
interesting
something,
idea.
it's a really, especially I think if you're going for a local couch co-op, I think if you don't implement something like that, you're just missing out on your audience. Because I think one thing I've noticed, I mean, the fact is that we play a lot of co-op games in my family. And if you don't have that, like my partner, there's only certain games she wants to play, because if she's constantly losing, because her skill level is just far lower, and her game ability is far lower, she's not going to play. She loves playing Tricky Towers, because oftentimes she'll beat her asses at it. You know, and it's like you never feel like you're hard done by. I think that's the thing that I was trying to get at, and I think I think if you don't have that balance and you don't have that all scale, then you just miss out on an audience. You miss out on that replayability. And I think the one thing I noticed when we were testing dungeon scale with my kids, and I was telling you about earlier, is we were all having fun. And it was even if my girlfriend was losing, because you're playing the dungeons again, you're going through the levels and you're getting, you're discovering different bits. You find bits you're good at, bits you're not good at, and you get to a certain level and you die on certain things when you first start the game, and then you find the next time around you're like, well, I want to get higher in that dungeon. And there's some dungeons like that they're quite tall. It's not just one screen worth of dungeon. You've got it goes up like it's a good 5-6 minutes to get to the top of the dungeon. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
quite a bit. I think you get a little bit of replayability out of that as well. The fact that if you enjoy certain dungeons, there'll be dungeons that you're like, oh, I don't like this one. That this got all the traps in the wrong places, But there'll be ones where you'll be like, oh, this is my jam. This is the one that I've been waiting for. I'm getting in here, and it was the same with me and the kids. It was like there'd be certain dungeons where my son would be the god of racing, and he'd be like we're going toe to toe, and you get right to the top, and it'd be the last jump and the last trap, would make the difference. And then you discover that one of you collected 2 more gold pieces, and that would put you over the top for the next level. So
Okay, wow. It sounds again, the whole idea, I didn't realize that you implemented that in the game. So that's actually really cool. Because I remember when I was growing up, I played far, far too much FIFA and Pro Evo. Honestly,
is there
and
such
it got to the point where friends wouldn't play me anymore. They're like, "No, I'm not
oh
playing you,
dear,
Rich." So I used to, this is the sort of this is where we need
started
the
hanging
scale
out at the
system.
malls,
No, what I used to
trying
do
to
is lay on my bed upside down, and I would only play them upside down to give them a chance.
holy crap, that is an interesting disadvantage. And how many times did they win when you're upside down?
Not often. I was like, "Come on, it's not that I'm upside down." Yeah, but
Upside down.
yeah, so
That's
they
awesome.
needed a
I
scaling
like that.
system.
The old one-handed, Street Fighter. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would make an interesting stream, wouldn't it? Upside down gaming. Yeah,
Upside down gaming. Yeah, I think you've got your idea for your next channel.
that's it. I'm in there.
What
um,
sort of problem you develop? It wouldn't be RSI. I think there'd be some brain issues before that.
yeah, I could just turn the camera upside down and pretend I'm upside down and look
Oh,
really
yeah, you
good.
could. Someone would find you out. That'd be like, that guy that does the car karaoke when they all discovered that he's not actually driving. He actually
Oh,
gets towed along.
oh
Like,
no,
that was
really?
that yeah, that was a recent discovery. It's like, well, of course he's not driving. Like, he would be pulled over in no time. He's paying no attention. He's, like, looking back and, like, yeah, the carpool karaoke guy, he gets towed in a vehicle, and they have a camera on the it's quite ingenious how they do it, but I just imagine your channel getting uncovered for
Oh,
for
that'd be good.
for scamming. Been scamming us all these years, and you're like a shot, like, just in your bedroom window of, like, someone with a little spy cam, drone camera. He's not upside down. He's never been upside down. It's like
Yeah, well, it wouldn't work. My hair's too long. I'd be busted straight away.
oh, yeah, yeah, you'd have to shave your head. You'd have to do it bald. You'd have
No,
to just
it's not
no
happening.
bit of hair would be able to be allowed. You'd even have to shave your eyebrows because people would do, facial tracking or something.
I think I've no idea how that's all relevant now. I've forgotten where we were. Scaling. Okay, so that's really cool that you've
Yes, sorry,
implemented that. Yes.
sidetracked. Yes, scaling. Scaling was something that I implemented, along the way. It wasn't something I think it was something I can't quite remember. It's been, almost 12 months now since I came up with the idea. But yeah, the scaling idea, like all great ideas, it just came to me, and there's always a way, I think, a process with game development. I don't know how it is for others more talented than me, but for someone like me who's self-taught, and I was telling you before, terrible at coding, an absolute duct taper of a coder. Um, I try to use good methods, but I think it's always a case of I come up with an idea, and the ideas are like, they're just like falling sand. You have hundreds of them when you're in that moment of revelation about the game. But half the hard thing is culling down to something that you can implement that's not going to take you far too long.
Yeah, of course. You can have all these grand ideas, but if it's just a nightmare to code,
Well, I think
it's just
the other
gonna.
thing is as well when you come up with the idea, because oftentimes the idea comes to you quite late. And I think that was one of them. Is like I designed all the traps and built a couple of the levels, and then I got to this. Then I was like, oh, hold on, this is something I could do. I could create some sort of scaling variable based on your rank. And so I had to go back and recreate all the traps. And
Oh no.
yeah, there were quite a number of objects in Game Maker I had to go recreate, and because I'm sure there's someone out there listening who'll be like, yeah, well, as a coder, you could do this in one line of code, probably.
If you
If probably a better, much far better way of doing it. I guarantee, if anyone ever got to look at my code, they would probably buy my game out of pity, I think, because
it's like, oh my
it's
god.
such a shambles. I look back at some of the things I've written, and you do it over the course of the game, and you're like, when when did what was I doing there? And then you will be like, I could have just done this. You have your bright day when you've had your coffee, and you're like, yeah, this is terrible. What was
What was I
uh,
doing? What was wrong with me?
you cringe at your own code, but yeah, I have got better along the way, I'd like to think.
So, where did you get the idea for the game from?
Um, so that was I thought that was an interesting moment to share, because I think, like I was telling you before, I've come up with 3 games or 2 games previous that I've worked on and never get around to finishing. But this idea came about. It was actually a weekend with my kids, and I was looking on the PlayStation Store for games, which we often do, and it's sometimes the most fun thing we do is we just look on the store and just browse games. The idea is, because there's so few sort of local co-op games. There's quite a few, but we go through a few. We like to play some for one weekend, and there's ones that we go back to, like Towerfall and Tricky Towers over and over again.
Mm.
So we were browsing, and I was just, I was at a loss. I was really after playing something like, like a dungeon game. I really like Gauntlet. Gauntlet's a really fun game. I don't know if you've ever played that one.
Gauntlet. Yeah. No, I don't think I have. I know it's a classic.
Yeah, it was like it was an arcade game, but what they did really interestingly on the PS4, and I'm pretty sure I've got this right, is with the wizard class, instead of just pressing a button to cast spells, you have different combinations. So it's almost like a Street Fighter type thing where you've got to pull off a combination. So it's really interesting when you're sort of under pressure, you've got to kind of pull off this combo of moves to kind of get it going. And it's
Right.
just yeah. Anyway, so I'll get back to my point now. The point of what I was trying to make is basically I was looking for something like that, and I was sort of like, oh, dungeon game, something like this. And then I was like, and of course I'm always thinking, I want my partner to play. I want her to get involved, because it's always so much fun when there's 4 of us just going at the game. And then I was just like, it came to me. I think I was lying in bed. I was literally going to sleep for the night, and it was often that tired state, that writers talk about just before you go to sleep. It's almost like an opening of your mind that happens before you fall into that dream state. And I just came up, I just sort of this game, and then my mind went, well, you could do that, which it often does. It jumps to the gun quite often. It's often wrong. So I had to have a good long hard discussion with myself, and I got my phone out, got my notepad document out, and just started, like I often do when I come up with an idea. I'll just jot down a few lines, and it'll be like, it'll form very quickly. Like it formed very quickly into something. Like it started with, the first thing I think I had was, I came up with this idea, and then I said to myself, okay, so what would I need to know? Because I obviously knew a bit about coding at the time. I tried to make a couple of games before, so I had a base of coding knowledge in Game Maker. So I was like, okay, so what could I actually do? And then I was like, the hardest thing that I didn't know that I could do, like I wasn't sure that I could either work out or find a way to do, was the views. Because the way Game Maker works is it's set up with views. So when you look at dungeon scale, there's 4 views visible, and those 4 views are independent of each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's not just like your standard game is just like, if you look at something like, say, like Towerfall, it's generally which I think is actually made in Unity, but it's the one view, so you're only seeing one screen with people jumping around on it, which I thought was probably would be easy to do compared to the views. But then the next day, the next morning, full of inspiration, I jumped on the computer and I made this most basic of levels, and I sat there with my girlfriend, and we sort of just like, all we had was a few platforms and 2 views sort of set up with black and white, and a couple of these characters that I'd borrowed from somewhere else. And I said, "Oh, let's have a go." And we had fun. She was dead set on racing me to the top of the little 5 stack of things, and she lost. she did lose. I'd like to put that on record. So there was no scaling mechanic at that point, and there was no traps. But I think she bet me once. But I think there might have been some cheating involved. I'd like to say, but it was just sitting there as that revelation moment where I was like, "Oh, this is actually fun," and I was like, "That's I think what drove it from there was the fact that it was just." And it was genuinely fun. Like we weren't trying to have fun. I was just like, "Can you come here and just try this out so I can see that the keyboard keys work and everything does what it should." And it worked, and I was like, from there, it just grew on me. I think it just grew like any good game did. And I originally had bigger plans for it. I had much bigger plans, but yeah, that's where
Okay.
it all began.
Okay, so it's a great sort of natural story, which is really nice, isn't it? You didn't map out what is the thing that's going to sell the most copies of. What do I need to do to make the most appealing game to a certain niche of people? Which I'm assuming, I don't know, a lot of games are built that way. Find out what you want to make for someone else.
I think you can tell. I honestly think some games are, if you've got a really good company that's a bunch of skilled people working on a game, I think it's very hard to tell what the original thought was. And I think obviously the bigger the game studio, the more organized it's got to be. But I think the best games just come from those ideas. Like I had two games before that I told you about, and I think the other thing, like you said, it's like you can kind of, I think you can kind of feel the contrivedness of games. Like there's games out there where you play them and you're like, there's no love in this game. There's no
No,
there's no passion. It's like someone's just put together a bunch of mechanics that they think will sell.
yeah,
And it kind of, it's like it's like listening to pop music almost. It's like there's no soul in it. You can
no,
always
it's just box ticking, isn't it?
feel that soul. Yeah, and I think that's what made this game finish as opposed to my other games. Is some of them were too grandiose in their scale. But yeah, I think when you're sort of driven by this, I think it's good to be driven by something that you want to play. Like you were saying before, you were telling me about indie gamiacs and how you came up with the idea for the podcast. I think that was interesting as well. So I
Yeah.
think you should do some sharing as well, Richard. I think you should tell the listeners. Because I think that's a very natural thing. I think it's almost like coming up with a game idea. Like you found something that you enjoyed, that you were good at, and you just
Yeah.
sort of had a knack. I think, yeah, you discovered something, and it's like you have a passion for it. I think that's what made it come
It
about.
Yeah, it does make a big difference. But it's nice to hear, and it's okay. So you have this idea in the middle of the night. Do you then start mapping out a plan? How much of a plan did you map out, or were you literally like building it block by block? Did you think, okay, so this is going to be the scale of the game. This is my action plan to attack it. This is what I'm going to aim for, and or was it you just literally sitting at the computer thinking, how do I get this block here?
Well, let's put it this way. With the first, so I might. Do you mind if I just give a bit of a history of my game development because it might
No,
make a bit more sense? 'Cause I think
it's
giving context is helpful.
it's the next question. I'm going to ask, how did you know how to do this?
So I started the next day, obviously doing the views and doing a little bit of testing because I think I had to get that question out the way. I had to know because all the platforming mechanics were fairly straightforward. I mean, the pickups and stuff like that I'd done in my other games, so I knew that. But I did this time around. I was very aware that scoping was something that I needed to focus on because every game suffers from feature creep. It doesn't even matter if it's a AAA game. I think anytime you come up with a great idea that's just too good to put down, it's like it's hard letting go. It's really hard letting go. And so I sat down with a big A3 a grid pad and just started doing some flow charts of menu systems and just of overall game design. So it was very very rough, but I do remember, I think it was either the next morning or the day after, but I sat for a good hour or two just doing all these flow charts and looking at it and sort of analyzing in my head what would be needed for everything to try and, I guess, try and scale the game to a sort of a doable size because it's like, for me at least, as a solo developer, my whole motivation lasts for a very specific period. I sort of have these very intense periods where I'm working my day job and then I'll do an 8-hour stretch after work and it will be no gaming, nothing outside of my passion at that point, which will be the game I'm working on. So I did that up until probably December, January, before that sort of started becoming impossible, and I just couldn't look at it anymore. And then I just put it away, and then I came back in April, and it was the same thing. So yeah, I definitely had some version of a plan, but I don't think it would be. I think there's people out there who plan far more than I do, but I've always been someone I prefer to have some excitement in what I'm doing and have some freedom. So getting that balance is hard, like not giving yourself too high a benchmark. But then again, like I was saying about the whole trap mechanic, it came to me further down the track. So, like, I mean, that's obviously just an idea that came to me, but there were certain features that I sort of came up with along the way that, with coding, it's like, it's always good to have things built in. And, if you put a variable in somewhere, to replace just a value that you're typing in, it's far easier down the track. Like with the score system, when I started balancing the score system, I went through and I had to replace every single value with a variable so I could put it in one place, which is just a logical thing to do when you're programming. Because I was so keen on getting it done, it was just, yeah, you just, some more planning is probably, would have been good.
Where did you learn how to do programming? Where did all this start from? Because you obviously didn't decide to learn programming at the same time as you thought about making a game, did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Well, originally, going back a few years now, I learned how to do some basic coding in C++. I made a little hangman program and things like that. But yeah, the original coding and knowledge came from just making games. I literally, as you said, you didn't just start. I did actually just start making games. I'm a very impatient person by nature, and it came about. I was reading an issue of PC Power Play about Hotline Miami, and they were talking about these two guys, I think, who now run Devolver Digital. I believe that's their company. They're more of a production company now than they are actually a game company. They sort of host indie games, I think, or they help other developers publish their games. But originally, I believe they were the ones who made Hotline Miami. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but
No, it's
originally
recorded now.
yeah, no, it's recorded now. Someone's gonna correct me, but no, I'll find out. We'll all learn together. But I was reading the article. It was like, I think it was around circuit whenever it came out. I think the game came out in 2014, but it was even before that. And I was talking about these two guys in their house making a game with Game Maker, and it was all an article just about the viability of the platform, and just saying, look, it used to be, something you could make Pong on, and you'd never make a commercially viable game, And I've always been interested in game making, I think, in some regard, but I put it away for a long time, because I just didn't think I'd be able to do it. Like I was telling you before, I'm not much of a coder, so there was no accessibility for me back then. It was, you knew C++, or you knew someone who could program, who's willing to help you make a game, or you couldn't do it. It was just infeasible. Like we had a friend of mine who could do a basic game, and we tried at one stage to make like a tank game. And I remember it took him a month just to get like a cube moving around the screen because he had to program all the graphical components. So when I found out about game making, that's when I sort of became a bit serious about it. And I went, I'm going to make a game. I said, these guys can do it, I'll do it. And so, yeah, that's when I started my first project, Black White Tray, which was this top-down shooter, which was a vector-based graphics type deal that was far too detailed, far too detailed. Like I remember at the time, I had a girlfriend, and I was recording on my little digital camera 30 seconds of footage of her like getting on top on a chair, and getting her to do like little rolls, forward rolls and back rolls for the character, because the character could roll. That was part of the mechanic. Getting her to like pretend to die. And I was literally filming this, and then I was taking the footage onto my computer and then putting it into Illustrator, and then drawing vector-based graphics on this for my main character.
Oh
That's
my God.
and and I think, like, time-wise, I probably spent double the time that I spent on that than I did actually on Dungeon Scale in the scale. And it's still, I think I've got it somewhere, but I think the end of it was like, it was like a thief-based simulator where you had like a choice-based progression system through like 20 levels, which I thought at the time was 20 levels. Yeah,
Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
game, easy game, let's go.
20 levels.
20 levels, nothing to sneeze at, and, so, let's just say I remember I was working on a door. Like, I had this really cool door pick mechanic where you go up to the door, you could pick the lock, and then it would come up with, like, this little circle of a lock on a screen, and then you'd have, like, these little points would appear, and you had to click on those points, and depending on the complexity of the lock would depend on how fast you'd have to click them, or it was like your lock picking skill or something.
Oh
And
my
then it would
God.
make this, and it had like full sound effects, like it had sound effects off the bat. It's like gun sound effects, everything. And yeah, I mean, I had shooting, I had like
So you went,
reload, I had like, I went ham with everything. It was fully over the top. And yeah, I had no concept of like scope. I guess scoping, you call it scoping, but like so putting an hour time frame into things, and that I just went ham. And I thought my pure grit and determination and just forcefulness would get me there. It did not. It did not get me there. So
did,
that was something I guess I learned from that project.
did you finish it?
No, no, that project that project died a long death. It died the death of I just realized, like I realized I got halfway through, 6 months in, and I had one level. I had one level, and I thought, well, I need to do some level design. I started doing level design. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like I started making this intro. Like there was this intro where this limousine pulls in, and then you get thrown over the fence. And then for some reason there was like a crazy cat lady, because I started making like these little
What?
little sprites for cats, and I was making like meow. I like meow sounds that I'd made myself that I thought were quite hilarious. So I
This
just
sounds
decided that's
amazing
what it,
now.
it was quite the adventure. Um, I should probably just release that little intro, and people will be like, "What is this
Definitely.
nonsense?"
This
Yeah,
sounds
but
amazing. But
yeah, it was quite the adventure.
do you think it's actually quite important that you went through that stage of realizing how long games take to make and things that you shouldn't do? Did that experience teach you how to make this game?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you're spot on with that. I think I'd be very surprised to see if there's anyone out there, and I'd love to meet them, who first time sat down to make a game actually finished their completed concept, because I just think it's one of those things. You can play thousands of games, but understanding how long things take is just such a big component. Like the second game I made, Shafted, which I'll talk a little bit about now, just because it gives a better concept. So after that, after Black, White, and Trey, I moved on to Shafted, which was a game. I think I ended up calling it Collapsia, because there's a song by Queens of the Stone Age that I thought was really cool, and it's got this meaning I can't quite remember. It's like a state of like, it's like some sort of dreamlike state, I think. I can't remember the exact definition, but look it up. It's quite an interesting meaning of the word. But the idea was, I would make all the graphics in Game Maker. I limited myself. I said no more Illustrator, no more great vector graphics. Everything's going to be done in the game, which is, if you know Game Maker, Game Maker's got something like Microsoft Paint with a few extra features. It's a little bit more detailed than Microsoft Paint. It's a pretty decent pixel editor, but it's very base. It's like you've got 16-bit colors, and then you've got your color palette, and then you just paint your pixels on, and then that's it. You can make animation by adding another sprite into the image, and then off you go. So I was on the right track with that, but again, it was just feature creep with that game. It was just, I didn't make any levels. I just spent all my time. I made a game where it was sort of, Shafted was like, it was a story driven platformer where you could mine blocks. And I actually had a really cool storyline, like which I thought was pretty cool. Like the idea was, it's so convoluted. It's like you're actually a clone. This was the base
Uh-oh.
of the game. Yeah, you were a clone. So Elon Husk had basically taken over the world with his technology, and what had happened is, because Earth had been just basically devoid of resources, all the rich people had gone to live in a spaceship, kind of like that. What's that movie with Matt Damon, I think, where they all live in this place in the cloud, and like Earth is sort of like a
Oh,
wasteland. It was something along those lines, and basically the only jobs left available were these deep mining jobs. So you had to go down these shafts to get these minerals out of the deep Earth. And so and basically that there was the surface level mining, which was deathly and horrible, and then there was the deep level mining, and basically there was like a lottery system, and the principle was is your wife and kids had been sent off, right? And you were trying to get back to them. So the only way to get there was to win a ticket, and that was to go to the deep mines to get what they call shafted. So if you got shafted, you basically won the lottery. But the thing is, like, what people didn't know is, and you realize throughout the game, is the fact that nobody comes back. Like, it's a death sentence. You literally get sent down into these mines, and they're full of monsters and creatures and a sentient AI that's kind of taken over the whole place down there. And you'd meet all
Bloody
these
hell.
miners. Oh god, yeah. When I get out of control with an idea, I go fully ham. Mind you, I had the start where you woke up in a clone chamber, um, which I don't think you knew you were a clone. I think that was sort of like the whole thing. And so
Yeah.
you'd get to the end of the game, and the idea was you get up there, and like you'd get to you get launched up, and then you'd find out the whole story would end, and you'd be like, well, actually, I was a clone the whole time. Because I think I was playing Soma. I don't know if you ever played the game
Oh,
Soma.
have I
Very
played that?
great game.
I think
Not
I've
not to
have it.
throw any spoilers at it, but it's some interesting, really interesting storylines. It's a wonderful game, absolutely wonderful journey, and it really gets you. It's one of those things where you're in the mode playing a game, and it just twists on you, and you just twist in such a wonderful way that just gets you thinking. Which I think any really truly great game does. Is it
Okay.
just either
It's in my
entertains
library.
you. Yes, definitely crank it up, because I think at least get half an hour in, and get past the intro sequence, because it's quite a dark game, but it's just a wonderful journey, and just a great discussion point, I think, as well.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I will definitely take a look at that.
I,
So that
I,
is
I would list that as my number one game of all
wow.
time. Yeah, so that's
Okay.
and I played a few.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to play it now, of
I'm
course.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Scales, my number one game. Go buy that one. That's a good one.
Everyone's pausing the podcast to go and buy
Everybody's
Soma.
pausing the podcast now, saying it's on discount on Steam now.
You just keep talking. I'm just going to check something.
Yeah, sure. I'll just keep talking about Soma. Yeah. So
Um,
tell us a little bit more about Soma. What's
yeah, just right.
great,
So,
great.
what about you said that you had a couple of people helping you, but it was mainly you. So, who are the couple of people, or what did they do?
What I'll do, are you happy for me to send the details after the podcast? Because I'd like to just have their Twitter account details there, because they were great to work with.
Of
Really great
course, yeah.
people.
I'll
Yeah.
leave all show notes in the show notes. Believe it or not.
So I guess one of the things with Dungeon Scale is I discovered itch.io and the wonderful talented people there who
Yep.
sell packets of like assets that you can use for your games. So obviously, knowing what I did about my last two games, and I can make a decent game. Like, if you look at the intro to Dungeon Scale and the tower and stuff, I did all that pixel art myself.
It looks good.
Apart from the logo, I should say, because that was one of the things that's absolutely fantastic, and I'm really happy with that was done by an artist. But yeah, firstly, the itch.io artists were just, there was so many good assets that I got from there that just made the whole process so much better. Like with Dungeon Scale as well, one of the interesting things that I did with the level design is each of the blocks is just one object. That's one of the coding things I was pretty proud of. So whenever you place a block, it has a set of sprites that it chooses from based on where it's located in the world. So level building is actually quite easy, because it's one of the things I'm not one of the things I love doing is building levels. So having that just made less coding for me. I didn't have to go through the level editor, because when you make levels in Game Maker, you have to drill down into your tree and then drop the block. So just having one block to drop, rather than a bunch of subset folders that you have to go through for each individual platform, was just a time saver. But yeah, having those artists make those wonderful packages for prices that are actually affordable for someone who's making an indie game was one of the big helps. But the other people who helped me was there was a person by the name of Azuna Pixels, who I think's a woman, but we never. I think she's female, just based on her art, which I might be wrong about. But she, I found her on Fiverr, to start with, because I was sort of looking again along the cheaper options for things, and I hired her, and she did the ninja character. So all the characters are animated by myself, except for the ninja character, because I originally started with the ninja character, and I made such a poor job of it that I just didn't trust myself to do it again. So I thought what would be fun is I saw her graphic style, and I was like, actually, this is kind of almost what I was doing with mine, and I just thought it'd be nice to get someone else involved, and it really added to it for me. And she was super professional. I mean, the price for the sprite was really reasonable for what she did, and she matched all my expectations. She was really happy. Like she was very flexible as well. Like I did the coloring in the game as well, so I changed the color of the sprite. And obviously with artists, it's like you don't want to
Yeah.
edit their work once they've done it. So she was happy with me to make a few small amendments to the sprite, and and she was, yeah, so she was very helpful. And the other one, which is the most noticeable one, is my logo, which was done by a guy called Paddler, who's a very talented pixel artist. Like, you should definitely check out his work. He's done an amazing job, and he was an absolute pleasure to work with. And the funny thing was, is when I first started talking to him, I was actually chatting to him on Discord, and I thought he wasn't that interested, because I went on artist. Oh, I can't remember the name of there's a website where he had some of his work up. I think it's Artistry, or there's a pixel artist website. But I looked him up on there, and I was just looking at these. I wanted a really nice logo design for Midnight Fair, because I really, I was happy to invest some money into it. Like, it was something I wanted, that I wanted to keep going forward. I wanted for my Twitter account and stuff like that. And I came across his art, and there was a few artists that I messaged that just I got no response from. So when he responded to me, I was sort of like, oh, okay, maybe, I was a bit tentative. I hadn't really dealt with people before, but I started chatting to a Discord, and then I was sort of like, giving him all these ideas and trying not to be sort of too forceful, and trying to, but convey my point at the same time,
Yeah,
because I know
it's really
exactly what
hard.
in my head. And I kid you not, he just disappeared for 5 minutes, and I was like, oh, I think I've gone too far, because it was he's I think he's Ukrainian as well. His English isn't 100%. He's quite like, he fully understood what I wanted. Clearly, by the end of the story, he'll understand, because he went away for 5 minutes, and then he goes, "I'll just hold on. I'm just doing a draft." And what? And he said, "Yeah, I'm just doing a mock." And he came back, and I kid you not, it was amazing. Like, he came back, and I was just like, that's exactly what I wanted. And I mean, I was like, I want a logo. I want some. I was like, because he does a lot of skulls and sort of like, dungeons sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, can I get some skulls? And there was this really cool guy who was like super detailed. I was like, oh, can I have something like that on top? And he's like, oh, actually, what I'll do is I'll do a was it like an idol type symbol? And I was like, oh, yeah, that'll look cool. And then he just came back with this thing, and I was like, yeah, that's fantastic. And I was like, can you just do this a little bit differently? And yeah, and he, I think I gave him, I think it was I gave him a fairly long time scale. Like, I think he normally works quite short time scale, but he had like, he said he normally does it about 2 weeks, but he took about a month, I think, which was fine with me, because I wasn't releasing anything in that time frame. But yeah, he did a wonderful job. Like, I mean, you just look at my logo, and
Yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
eye catching, most engagement. It's so wonderful. It's just yeah. And he even, like, after I'd paid him for the work, he came back, and he just looked at it, and he was like, no, 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 I want to fix this, this, and this. So he actually, he was very
Yeah.
professional and very, very easy
Oh,
to deal
awesome.
with, very, very friendly guy. And we're in different time zones, so like, same with the Zuna. I think it was just great, like, just getting people from around the world just helping out with something that I was working on here felt so good. And I'd encourage it. Like, I think if you're listening and you're thinking about making a game, or you're working on a game, I would say, if your motivation is waning, and you've got the funds to spend a little bit, even if it's a couple of dollars on a sprite or whatever, I'd do it. I'd do it, even if it's itch.io, the guys on there. But just getting someone involved was just, for me, it was so motivating. You know,
Yeah,
not
it does
just
help.
not
Yeah,
it really was the deciding factor, I think, to make sure that the dungeon scale was finished.
brilliant. Well, we'll make sure we leave links to everyone mentioned in the show notes, just in case anyone wants to, get some work done. And fantastic. Right.
I
Okay.
stopped talking. Quiet. I waffled on that one a bit,
He's
sorry.
gone. No, 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 no. It's fine. It's totally fine. Like I said, it's good to get some details about what else goes on. So now I'm scared to ask the next question, because I've got a feeling you might have some answers. Are you ready?
I possibly answers to any question you
Yeah.
might ask the way I
So, has anything surprised you or troubled you during development? Is there anything that's really stuck out in your mind that you've either been stuck on or you wasn't expecting?
Yeah, I think I was talking to you before. There was two things that I think were really challenging with regards to like development. I think one of them was the score system. I really had no idea how hard it was to do scoring and do it well, I guess. I think I did a fairly good job of it, but just even just designing the score system took so long. Like I was sort of doing things weekly basis, and I sort of thought, oh, score system that'd be done in a week, of my 8 hour day type thing. But it ended up taking me, I think, a good 3 or 4 solid weeks of work just to get up and running. One of the hardest parts was just I was telling you before, I'm terrible at maths, was getting the outcome of 4 numbers and ranking them, which I ended up doing after I found a tutorial on how to sort lists. And even then it was a bit of trial and error just to put the numbers in and then work out that they were ranking them correctly, because you've got to try, a factor of different variables to make sure that they're actually scoring correctly. So that was one of the hard things. The other thing that really threw me, because I've got moving platforms in the game, and I've implemented something to keep the game running quite smoothly, because Game Maker is fairly efficient, but when you're talking about the length of levels that I've got, having 4 of those running with moving characters, and the way Game Maker works is if you've got a level which is a room, the whole thing is running the whole time. So all the monsters at the top of the level and the bottom of the level are all moving. They're all doing collision checks. They're all doing these things. So when I was running the bigger level, when I first made the bigger level, I was like, oh crap, this is terrible. You just unplayable. It was running so slow. And I'm like, I just was at a loss because I hadn't anticipated this. I just sort of thought, well, it's all sprite based, it's all instanced, it should run fine. I mean, but I've got like a decent gaming rig, so I was just dying on mine. So I was like, this is not, I'm trying to sell it as something that people can play on their keyboard. For the
Yeah.
people who less but good computers, they could play it. So I was like, oh, I need to fix this. So I came up with this. I came about some tutorials about frustum culling, which if you
Wow.
don't know what it is, it's
No idea.
a very fancy term for basically saying draw what's on the screen and forget about everything else. So I had to work out how to do that. And I had many hours of my characters falling through levels. And one of the other things that happened was I was talking about the moving platforms before, is I was getting the game just freezing up on me, and it was really sad because it was one of the first weekends I got my kids around, and we sat down to play the game. I had the computer in the lounge room with all the controllers all connected up, the Xbox, the PS4, I had all the so I could test everything. And then we got through the first level, got to the second level, everything's going fine, we're having a great time, and then the game just freezes. And I
Oh
was like,
no.
"Oh god." And the worst thing about a crash to desktop is there's really no error message. I don't think there was anything to work off. I think there might have been something in the code when I reloaded the game. I can't remember with Game Maker how it works, but something triggered at me that the platforms, and then I was thinking about the way frustum culling works is it deactivates an instance. So it just turns it off basically. And then when it comes on the screen, the whole screen is drawn as you go. So as you're moving, it's kind of drawing stuff just a little bit above the screen. So those things are just being activated. So I realized what was happening is because it was a moving object, it was clipping. And the same thing with a lot of the monsters, like the slimes and the bats, they would have the issue that they would clip, and they would fall outside the level because obviously they're not getting hit into a solid
Yeah.
object. So there was that, but the freezing was the hardest thing. But once I worked that out, and the funniest part was I ended up recoding all the platforms. Excuse me, so I could do vertical platforms as well, because vertical platforms, no matter what I did, would just not work because of the way, if they're moving upwards at a certain time, there would always be a time when they'd fall off they'd just disappear. So they'd fall through the level and off they'd go into the ether. But I actually coded them so if you play the game and you move too far away from the platform, now it will actually stop moving, and that's coded in that way. So I did that, and it was completely pointless, I think, because I think I've taken out all the vertical platforms. So there's a bunch of coding in there that I did that I didn't need to. So yeah, that was definitely one of the big challenges.
Well. Okay, well, I'm skipping the question here, but what on the same vein is that the thing that you spent the most time on, or is there something in the game that you spent way too long doing?
I think the characters were probably the big one. Art is always something that takes the longest time if you're doing it yourself, like, and I
Yeah.
guess I spent the longest time on that tower. That tower took me an entire, I think, 12 hours, which is probably not that long when you consider it's got a lot of detail in it. I was drawn It's a pixel drawing with me clicking the mouse. It's not I
That's
don't know if
true.
you see it's quite a long time, and I'm not at all talented. I think it turned out pretty well, but I'm not a talented artist. I make do like I do with my coding, but yeah, I think the characters. I think I was pretty good with the characters. Like I think I started with a decent base, and I worked from that. So I think, but I think I probably spent. I wouldn't say too long. I think I just spent probably. I think too long. I think yeah, just I think some things took longer than others. I don't think I spent too long on anything. I was pretty happy overall with the time I spent. I probably should have done more level design. Like the game, it does only have 8 levels, so it is pretty short. There is ways to have different combinations of levels, and the way the levels are set up, the replayability. I think you get a fair bit of replayability out of those 8 levels, just due to the fact that if you're playing a quest game, which is only 3 levels, it's one small, medium, large. You're not playing the same as if you're playing the other one, which is like 4 and 5. So there's sort of like 5 different scenarios you can have. Your new quest, journey, adventure, and then epic. I think it is. I think that's the way it's set up. But they're all dispersed, so you're not always playing the same combination. I think because you die often, because it's quite a difficult game, you get a lot of replayability out of it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I should have probably spent more time developing some more levels and stuff like that. But I focused more on quality. Like I focused on getting balanced levels and making sure that there wasn't, you know, too many issues with getting up, because the jumping mechanic, I think, is quite hard to get a nice feel for the platforming mechanic. So
Are the characters so you've got lots of different characters to choose from, but are they just cosmetic? There's no advantage picking the ninja over the wizard, or
There
is there?
is there is there is slight differences. There is slight
Ooh.
differences, and I'd like to apologize to anyone who tries to work them out off the bat, because it is something you need to play to sort of work out. I designed the hero select screen quite early on, and just due to the way I designed it, was gonna be too much work for me to go and redo it to make it a little bit clearer. I did redo the interface once already for everything to make it look nicer, but, I wasn't willing to go to that nth degree for the, things. So, basically, I think the way it works is the wizard, he has the cool fireball ability, and there was one thing I'm really proud of. I'm going to say is that if you hold down the button, he does like this holding the fireball before he throws it.
Oh, nice.
And that actually caused a really horrible bug at one point because of the way the code was done. So it used to crash the game, but now if you can do it, and I've worked a lot of time getting it, but he can unlimited fireball, but the thing is his mana regenerates slowly. So he's got unlimited ammo, but the problem is if you have to wait to kill things. So obviously time is the essence in the game. So he's got that ability. He's also extremely weak. And especially from the first level, when he's got one life, you hit one spike, and thanks for playing. You're the first one dead.
Right. Okay. Oh, wow.
Whereas the
Okay. So,
ninja's like super fast, but he's got sort of mid-range ammo, and then your hunter and I think your gunslinger are fairly similar. Like I think the gunslinger's got one extra ammos, but slightly slower. But I ended up like I ended up having a lot of differences. Like I was going to have the archer fire upwards and stuff, but the more mechanics you add, and
mm,
especially because there's sort of in between levels in the shop level, you can buy spike immunity, and you can buy all these sorts of things that are like, and you can boost your jump and things like that. So I didn't want to have too much in there that kind of mess with the mechanic too much and created too much variance that made it hard to balance.
wow. So that's really impressive. The fact that because when I first saw it, I thought they were just cosmetic because I thought, well, there's no way that they've all got different powers and abilities. But the fact that you've managed to give them their own little personalities and skills, I mean, that's
They've got
impressive.
names as well. They've all got names.
That's
Some of them are named after my kids. Like what my son goes by the moniker Demon Speed. So one's called Demon. My daughter's name is I won't say my daughter's name, but May May is her character, and then my partner's name is Rita, so she's in there as well. And then they're all namesakes of things I like. Like there's Locke from Loch Lamora, and there's all these little namesakes in there. I let people work it out. MJ's in there for Michael Jackson, even though it's a female
did,
character. I
did
was
you
watching
now?
the series on Netflix.
Now I tweeted this out yesterday, just completely unrelated. I was asking how many indie devs have put themselves in their games in some form. So, do
Ah.
you have a character after you?
I haven't done the Stephen King thing. I don't know if you know about Stephen King, but he's always in
No.
his movies, and he like,
Oh, yes.
I'll get I'll later in the thing, I'll talk a bit more about Stephen King because he's got a part to play in this story as well. He,
Oh, cryptic.
yeah, but he often puts himself in a game. But I think, I think, yeah, there's like there's definitely a part of me in the game. Not directly though. You will never find me. I'm in the credits quite a bit. I tried to scale it down and not give myself too many credits while still remaining professional. But
Did it just say me, 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 me,
it
just
does a
scrolling
little bit. It
past?
goes like game development level. I just wanted to like because I had to break down everything for everybody, and I really will like. I even like I wanted a lot of those free sound websites and edited a lot of those clips, but I tried to give credit to absolutely everybody. Like I kept a running like I kept as much information about all the free stuff that I took so I could give everybody credit. I'm actually quite proud of the credits as well because I just found this. There was a guy who does like a free piano track, and he just is this wonderful thing when I was making sometimes things just work in games. Like it's usually the exception instead of the rule. And I was making the credits, and I've got like the credits are like this big long block that's sort of a sprite that switches images as it goes across the screen, and as it rolls the little logo at the end, the last few notes of the song played, and I was like, that is just. And I've got like this like nighttime sort of tower scene with a fire going in the background, and it's kind of very atmospheric. It just felt really nice. Like it just felt like at
Yeah.
that point the game was clear. I did do it right, kind of like obviously towards the end of the production of the game, so that was kind of a really nice thing.
Okay. Well, all right.
But yeah,
So,
no, to answer your question, yeah, I'm not in the game besides my name and some things I like in the characters' names.
okay. I do like that question. In fact, I might add that to the list of regular questions because it's quite
I think
interesting.
that's a very, very cool question because it's got a few levels to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I, again, you think it must be very tempting to put yourself in the game.
Oh, hidden gems. I love hidden gems,
Yeah.
like I think they're very cool. Although I don't have too many. I don't have too many in the game. I was thinking about putting some in there. Maybe I'll go back and do that and just do an update.
Yeah.
I'll throw a little Richard in there. I'll just put your face, you'll kill a block it, and your head will pop in.
Love it. That'd be amazing. Watch out. Watch this space, everybody. Okay, so on to the next one. Um, an easy one for you. Release date.
The release date was the 21st of July this year. So the game is actually out on Steam, which I think answers probably one of the next questions. So if you just search Dungeon Scale on Steam, and you can also just if you go to my Twitter, which is at MF Product, you can find the game there. So yeah, it came out 21st July this year.
Okay, so is it only on Steam? You don't plan to release this anywhere else?
No, I think I'm happy with Steam. Steam is one of the things. If you are again just talking to developers out there, if they're listening, make sure you invest a little bit of time during your project to learn about Steam and understand the process, and be very careful setting your price and your release date because Steam, if you haven't used it before, Steamworks is quite involved. It's not hard. Some things are hard. I think some things are difficult. I didn't go overly to it, but they have very specific approval processes. Like my images had certain issues with them when I first made them, which almost delayed my release date. I gave about a month when I started setting it up, but it was cutting it fine by the end. Steam's enough for me. I think. I was planning a PlayStation release, but it's very cost inhibitive to get a developer license. I think it's like $800, whereas Steam, you pay the $100, and I believe if you make enough sales, you get that money back as well. So it's like a deposit, but $100, I think, if you're willing to invest in making a full game, is pretty reasonable. And you get and that the exposure is amazing. Like the amount of people who actually look at your game is huge. Like Steam do a really good job. I think if you have a solid product, you can definitely expect to get sales on Steam. I think I
What
would
about
say.
the Epic Store? Do they do indie games? I suppose they do, don't they? They do, I guess.
I'm really not sure, to be honest. I did do some development in Unreal at one point, but I think a pretty key indication is you look at how many games are on the store, that's usually a pretty key indication of how exclusive the platform is and how
Mm.
rigorous it is. Like you look at PlayStation, you don't find many, ham games on there. It's usually very well developed games. They've got quite a big production. Even the indie games on there are very well designed and well done because obviously you've got to have a level of budget for it. It's not something you can sort of get on. And I think Epic Games, the same I've heard with I just recently bought an Oculus Rift, and their store, it's very exclusive. They've got a very high standard. So yeah, I would love to release it like on GOG or something like that, but yeah, I'm happy with Steam at the moment. I'm pretty satisfied. As long as it's out there, people can buy it. That's good enough for me.
And do you plan on any updates to the game? Are you looking to extend the game or add any other features into the game in the future?
I don't want to make any promises, and that's why I haven't really said that I will. But I was working on a co-op for the game, and I have started that. So if the inspiration does come back to me, and it may, I might. It depends. I guess it depends for me, like how successful the game is, whether I get. It has been pretty good so far, but because it's so niche, I think as well, there's no single player campaign, which I was planning to implement. I might at some point finish the co-op, which was just going to be basically so you could play the game yourself, do like timed runs through, and the way I'm making it, and I think so far I've got it so the players will spawn, you can get through the level. The way it works is you play the 8 levels, and instead of having the scaling based on your rank, the scaling goes on how far you go through. So you go through all the levels, all 8 levels on easy mode, and then it scales up, and then it scales up again. So basically, the idea will be that you get a score as you go through, and then if you die, you restart the whole thing. So it's kind of like a roguelite sort of version of the game that you can play yourself. So I was thinking about implementing that, and I may at some point. It's whether I know it takes a certain level of motivation, so I have to be very enthused about it. So I don't want to say to people that's coming. But if I do it, anyone who's bought the game will get that for free. I'm not going to I
Okay.
might do like another marketing round of like, telling people about it, but it'll be an update for the game. It won't be an additional game.
Yeah. Because I suppose also mentally that must be hard work to get your head around because to you now you've finished the game and you've released it. So it's kind of the end of the project, isn't it? And to sort of dive back into it and restart certain sections to add features, it must be quite hard to sort of not to motivate yourself, but sort of get yourself in the right headspace to go back in rather than starting the next game.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think doing it 2 or 3 times before with the other games, I know I have a very good indication within myself of what I'm capable of and what's going to come out of it. So yeah, I wouldn't attempt it unless I was sure. But I think the thing is like I think I was saying to you before the podcast started. It's like I love Dungeon Scale. I do love Dungeon Scale, but by the end of the process, it was pure work. It was pure work in the last days, like when I was making the trailer, when I was putting it out on Steam, and I had nothing to give left to give. Like I told you earlier that I gave up in April and January. When I came back in April, that is when I cut out the campaign. That is when I cut out the local co-op. That's when I cut everything into what Dungeon Scale effectively is. Because I said to myself, I need to finish it, and it was a promise I made to myself before I turned 40. I would release a game, so that's what I want to do more than anything. And it wasn't, I wasn't trying to, I realized, making a co-op game that you can only play on a PC is a very small market, and I'm sure there's people that will enjoy the game, and it's a wonderful game if you've got 4 people to sit around and play at a computer, or you've got a computer set up in your lounge room. But I realize, it's got remote player enabled, which I've tried and works, so you can actually play it over the internet through sort of like a broadcast streaming thing where it
Oh,
takes
can you?
inputs.
Does that
And yeah,
work?
and it seems to work fairly well. I've only done a small bit of testing, but I put it out there because it's like it, it, I mean, my player base is so small. If I get any feedback off, I'll do my best to fix the issues. But it's basically run on Steam platform. So what it does is it's like you would broadcast the game. Some person acts as a host with the broadcast, and then it takes your inputs, sends them to their computer. But I was playing with my friend in Adelaide, which is the next state across, and he's got NBN. And I wasn't. It wasn't. It was responsive, but I could see it being a little bit problematic. So if you were thinking of purchasing it just on that basis to play with your friends, I wouldn't recommend it. But if it's something you can try out, definitely do. So it might work better on better internet connections. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm only on ASL too, so I haven't been able to thoroughly test it. When I get to I'll be moving house soon and getting NBN, so I might give it another test. And yeah, but yeah, I think I just need if I get the motivation, I think that's the thing. It's very motivation based. There is a grind to it, but yeah, you have to have a passion for it. I think that's the thing. And I think having my kids play my game, having them enjoy it and have us enjoy it as a family, that always made me excited for the next weekend to implement some new things and show it to them. And I was a little bit like, you always talk about how you know people should be promoting their game, getting it out. I was even exclusive in my family when they got to play it. They would be asking me, "Can we play the game? Can we play the game?" Like, no, because I knew I had to really test it thoroughly at the end. So I was like, I had to really save their enthusiasm for when I needed it. And yeah, I could tell you by the end of it, it was the last few weekends of testing before release where no one was having a good time. We were literally sitting in my because I got my computer in the bedroom, and it's like we were literally sitting on the bed all playing and like going, my girlfriend was tired from work, and it was like
No.
everybody was done, and we were just because I kept I had to, I had to get footage for the game, so I had to get certain things I wanted for the trailer, and like there was still there was an interface bug where like how you get like the image where it says, oh, using a bomb is a good idea at the end of the
Mhm.
screen. That always seemed to offset for some reason, and I couldn't work that out, so that looked terrible in the trailer. So I had to try and
Oh.
get. So it was terrible. So if someone died early, that clip was then gone because you've got this glaring bug on the screen. So yeah, sorry to ramble a bit, but
No, no,
yeah,
that's
that's
but that's
yeah.
when one of the reasons, because I mean, I spoke to you, probably 2 months ago, wasn't it, that we first sort
I
of
think
got in
so, yeah.
contact? And
I think it was before the release, yeah.
yeah, and I've been trying to stream it. I mean, aside from all my audio issues and all
Mm.
my chaos that I've been going through, um, the other problem I was having is having someone to sit and play with me.
No. I mean,
So that is
look, I would recommend if you can, find someone who's got a decent internet connection, try the remote play. I don't know if you've tried it before, but
yeah,
like I
I
said,
have,
there
yeah.
there is there's a slight lag, but it was playable. Like, it was funny, my friend, because 'cause I've programmed the gamepad, that was the other thing I had a lot of issues with the gamepads, because I programmed all the gamepads to just pick up any gamepad. My friend's got a HOTAS setup, he loves flight simulators, so when I got him to test it, it registered with the game that there was three controllers connected, so he was playing with the throttle, I think, while I was bashing away on the keyboard. So,
No,
but
that's
yeah,
good because
it was working well enough that you could probably test it. Like you could probably get some footage for it. Whether it'd be hard to be competitive, I think, for the person who's connecting. But you might find, obviously, England's probably got better internet than we do with your NBN. You might be able to play it, and you can let me
I
know how
will.
it goes.
No, I will. See, now I know that I will actually try it because
Mm.
I've got you know a group of friends who play games every single day.
Oh wow!
They're on Discord every single day. There's normally 6 or 7 of them play. I mean, I'm not even without fail. There's 6 or 7 of them playing games.
Well,
So,
if you need a copy, I'm happy to give one away. So
oh,
I don't know if
here we
you
go.
wanna do that little section now, or
We can talk
I
about
think
that.
if people have managed to this, they probably deserve a free copy, I think, of the
Yeah,
games.
this is probably
Um,
going to be the longest episode in history. So if you've got this far,
Probably.
then
Oh, yeah,
Aaron
if
is
you've made it,
very kindly going to give a copy.
like, I mean, just like I've actually got, speaking of Stephen King before, I actually got a riddle from the, I think it's the 3rd book in the series, of the Dark Tower series, which is a sci-fi fantasy series that I grew up reading, and Stephen King only finished when I was in my 20s, I think. So I read it in high school, and yes, but there's an episode where they're riddling a AI train. Blaine the Mono, he's called, and yes, they riddle him with Faraday riddles, and there's a bit of history to it. But I just love the scene where they're riddling this crazy train hurtling along at like the speed of sound, and it's Yeah, and the train is quite hard to stump. But I was gonna so basically, if you can get the riddle correct, how should we do it? Is it best if I just say, look, message me on Twitter? I think probably
Yeah,
because that'll
yeah.
be easy. So whoever sends me the correct answer first by timestamp will get the free copy of the game, and I'll give you a CD key that you can just go add a game in Steam and activate, and it should work for you. If you have any issues, you can obviously message me. So the riddle is: with no wings I fly, with no eyes I see, with no arms I climb, more frightening than any beast, stronger than any foe. I am cunning, ruthless, and tall. In the end, I rule all. Rule all. What am I? So that's the riddle.
Ooh,
So
so there you go. So questions.
five seconds of googling will probably will probably
Probably need that,
anyone
isn't it?
with fast fingers will probably win. But you know,
It's all right. So yeah, you can again give your Twitter handle again.
yeah. So yeah, if you message the answer to at MF Product, so Midnight Fair Product, MF Product, just those two letters, you should be able to find me. Midnight Fair Games is pretty easy to find. I think googling.
Excellent. Well, thank you
And
very much.
yeah,
It's very
take
generous
free
of you.
copy of the game. There you go. Oh, look, it's a pleasure. It's the least I can do for you, Richard. I think I'd like to say on the record that you've been the most supportive person outside of my family in the game, and it's really helped a lot. I think smooth a lot of the bumps along the way. You don't always get the best reception from people you're trying to help. Promote your game or talk about your game. So you have been an absolute pleasure.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. And again,
And
I've
you sending the money for that? Is that coming through? Do I get
edit
some free
cut.
noodles?
I'm going to be haunted with the noodle story for the rest of
Oh,
my
I
life.
just such a good story. Such a good story. Such a
Um,
classic.
you do have.
Mm,
If anyone wants to know the noodle story, then
mm.
message me because I'm not.
I guarantee you, I would put money down. I'll put another free copy on the fact the noodle story will be in episode 17. I think it should be. This is the longest episode on record. We should just put it in.
Just stick another one in. Why not?
Yeah.
If you, I've completely lost my train of thought now. I'm just thinking about noodles.
Mm. Well, we know where to get.
Where was I going with that?
I think
Oh
you've done release date. You've done
no, I've got it. I've got it.
oh,
I've got it. I'm in there.
mm,
So we were talking before, and you told me that you had a less than positive experience with keys.
mm.
So I thought other developers may find this bit quite interesting. So what issues did you have with the key?
So in my so Midnight Fair Games at Gmail, or sorry, Midnight Fair Productions at Gmail is me. I'm not even sure where I have that email address linked. I think it's linked to my Twitter, but immediately upon release, not during the coming soon phase, which is 2 weeks out from release, I started to get these emails, and I'd also sort of sent out feelers to different YouTubers and some sort of mid-level YouTubers that I thought might be interested in playing the game, or I might have a chance at sort of letting them have a free key and see if they'd give it a try. And then suddenly on release, I start getting all these emails from a lot of Russian sort of supposed curators and YouTubers, and I wasn't aware, but apparently it's a very common thing for people to do is get you to give away a free key in your game and then sell it on websites like G2A, like key resale sites. But some people
Okay.
just do it as like it's like a hobby for them. Like there was an article that I read that was very helpful. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately. I apologize for that. But if you look up what we're talking about, you probably find this article. But he was talking about how he actually messaged some of these people to find out why you trying to, effectively steal my game. And some people just do it because they want to get free games. So there's just sort of like a hobby thing. So there was some more illegitimate ones than others. But I started to email the first one back, and I'm like, hold on. I clicked the link, and it was a standard sort of scam thing where you're like, this doesn't feel right. So I thought I better do some research. But I probably ended up giving away a couple of free keys to scammers anyway. So look, if you want to try your luck, you've got my email address now. So shoot your best shot. But yeah, something to be aware of, when you start giving out keys and trying to promote your game. And I would say as well, like another thing with the Steam store, it's good to get up on Steam as soon as you can, because you can request like bunches of keys from them and start. And it's one of the things as well I didn't realize is it's good if you're going to market it to people is to send out those keys, and you can track which key goes where. So you can say like, I've given you a key, I'll understand who activates this product. You know what I mean? You get an understanding of the region of where they're from. So you can still say, oh, I
Oh,
just
okay.
gave a key to this person, it's active, they've played this many hours. So you get some feedback on your game as well, indirectly. So something to keep in mind if you're looking at releasing. But yeah, definitely getting on Steam early rather than later is good, because I was, at the end of my motivation period, and I was having to make a gameplay trailer, and the marketing takes some time, so it's always good to, I guess, look into that if that's something you want to do.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting
Something
story.
I'd never come
That,
across through
yeah,
free games and being on Twitter since 2014, and never heard the story till then. So yeah, I think it
no,
was
and
worth sharing.
same. I don't think anyone's brought that up either in the previous podcasts about what
Maybe
happens
I
with the
just
keys.
look like a victim.
Yeah.
Maybe my game's just that good. People just want to steal it.
Yeah, it does all seem to be pointing to you here. But it's an interesting warning, and something that that probably.
It might, to be honest, it might even be from YouTube, because I think my YouTube presence has my email address link, so it could be even something from that where they
Yeah.
get them. But, it's pretty obvious when you get them, because it's usually curators. And the best way to, I should probably say how to fix it as well. Like if you think you've got someone genuine interested in your game, go to their channel and get in contact with them. Just obviously contact them directly is the way to circumnavigate that, and they'll let you know. Because a lot of people impersonate legitimate channels, and they do a good job of it. So
Okay, interesting.
emails look very, and I'm someone who's very usually quite aware of scams. It's very rare that I'll click on something I'm not supposed to. So it was quite convincing.
Okay, that's a good warning.
Being
And again,
targeted to programmers and gamers, you got to be switched on, right?
yeah, and maybe the reason why we don't hear a lot about it is either because either you're the stupid one and got busted,
Mm.
or people don't want to talk about it because they feel a bit silly.
I think, yeah, and it really was. I've got to say, like, I was really hurt at the time, because it's like we were talking about before, is getting your game out there is so important, and I definitely will be doing that if I'm going forward. But I think you're so shy about your game. You've invested so much time. I mean, just think about something in your life where you've spent a lot of effort and time and put into it, and you've got even just a mediocre reaction. It's really hard. It's a creative side of you. It's the vulnerable side of you putting out there, and then you just get all these responses, and you get excited. Because it's your first game. It's generally a lukewarm to zero response to your game. I mean, that's what you can expect, unless you've made something that's I guess super fantastic or really 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 special. You're generally going to get that sort of response. So to have that on top is, it's pretty hard. It's pretty awful. So if you're silly enough, you start sending out these keys like I was doing. I mean, you feel awful, and I just think I'm glad I can share it with people and let people know, so they don't look foolish like I do. Much rather give away my keys on the Indie Gamiacs
No.
podcast. That's my advice. Give them away for free on Indie Gamiacs. It's good for your business. This message is sponsored by Indie Gamiacs.
I love it. This is amazing. All the plug-in all over the place here.
Rant. I say things about you.
That coffee's kicked in you've had now.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I think it's eating too much.
So what about? I always say, so what about? I've noticed that because when I edit it, I have to keep cutting that out.
What
What do you,
about?
what about your game? What do you want people to remember your game for? Is it? Do you want them to come away with a certain feeling, or if someone comes up to you and says something about your game, what do you want them to say?
I'd love I'd love to hear stories like the ones that I shared about me and my family. Is just I wanted to make a game that you can sit down and play with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your family, and just hear these stories about people playing and just having a good time. Like I just, I think like you said, there's a lot of things that you were surprised about. I hope people can get surprised about some of the things in the game. Just have fun. I mean, I find myself playing the game and just having fun playing it. So I'm assuming if I enjoy it, other people enjoy it. You know, my kids, I think, genuinely enjoyed it. So I'd love if people can just have a good time with it. You know, I'd also say to people listening, there will be a price drop probably in mid-August. So if you are thinking of buying it and you've listened this far, make sure you wish list and wait for that because yeah, I'll be adjusting the price about mid-August is all I'm going to say. So yeah.
The last question, it's a new one. I've added in. I think I added it last week. So for people looking to get into game development, do you have a piece of advice that you would give them in whatever stage they're at? Is there a piece of advice that would really help them from your experience?
Absolutely. I think get an idea. I was talking to this about my friend the other day who always talks about doing things but doesn't follow through that often. But I was saying, I think we've all got friends like that. Get an idea that you're passionate about. I think that's step one, and make something that you want to play. Definitely don't do what we were talking about before and try and make something that you're going to sell because it's very hard to be motivated by money over the long term. I think you have to be something that you enjoy playing, and if you can get someone who enjoys playing it, then definitely find someone you can share it with. If it's your significant other and they're just excited to see what progress you've made and they see your blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, my partner, no idea about what it takes to make a game, but I can guarantee you if I didn't have her, the game would never have got made because she was just so excited at any little thing I showed her, a moving platform, a new sprite. She'd go, oh, that looks good, you know, and that little bit of encouragement can make all the difference sometimes when you're just sweating out hours on end, hitting compile and just hitting with a brick wall. But my main advice would be stop learning and just make a game. I mean, that's the best thing I ever did was keep backing myself, even though I failed 2 times before and I didn't make a game and I came off, you know, quite disappointed of both of those. I would never have made a game had I never just backed myself and started and made those mistakes. So I think it's like anything. It's like you've just got to be brave in yourself and know that you can do it. Know that you don't need to be an expert coder. You don't need to be anything fantastic. Just believe in yourself and, you know, start small. Scope something that you know that you can probably do with some tutorials and some help. And, you know, there's nothing that you can't not find on the internet with an answer, you know, and that's the best way to go, I think. Yeah. And
Okay.
I'd say try and learn Unity. Sorry, Game Maker. Game Maker is fantastic, but I wouldn't be making any more games in Game Maker just because of its limitations. So I think I've kind of outgrown it. If I was going back to make another platform game, if that's what you're making, or a little top-down shooter, it's definitely a very viable option for that. But I think Unity is got far more scope and scale. That's where I'm looking in my future. So
Yeah, Unity does seem to be the main platform people are choosing now.
that and Unreal, I think, yeah, depending on what you're making.
Of course, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's great advice. And that is all the major questions that I have.
Now we get to rant on for another hour or so.
But is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to go over? Anything about the game that you want people to know about?
I mean, you had that question about what are you developing now? So, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, my next release, would you believe it, I'm planning. Here comes another game of scale that probably never get finished, but I'm
Uh-oh.
planning a multiplayer VR game. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm currently spending my evenings of motivation watching tutorials by a wonderful guy called Valum, who's got a wonderful, I think he's French. I think that's what the accent is. I'm not 100% sure. It could be something else, but he's got a wonderful French accent. He's really good with these tutorials. I've got my Oculus Rift that I got myself for a birthday present, my Rift S, and I'm playing with that, and I've got some nice little levels set up, and I'm having a wonderful time. That's all I can say. I worked how to pick up things and throw them at people and make guns that shoot. So yeah, so I mean the hard part of that is the multiplayer is going to be quite difficult. But I hear Photon is quite a good plugin, so I've got a few tutorials. But again, I've got no firm plans for a game. But yeah, that's
Okay,
what I'm
but
working.
you're playing around.
I am,
Okay.
yeah. I'm having a fun time as
Um,
you should.
And where is the best place to? I know we sort of covered this mainly, but where's the best place to find out about the game or yourself, or where should people go? Where are you most active?
I would say Twitter's probably good. I have a Facebook presence and a YouTube, so any game trailers will be on YouTube. You can find me the easiest way if you just go on Twitter at MF Product on Twitter, or you can find Dungeon Scale on Steam just by searching that.
Brilliant, fantastic.
Yep.
Well, this has been epic. I've loved it.
It has been epic. I'm so sorry, Richard. I know you. I know it's so late for you, mate. I do appreciate you letting me waffle on for so long. I shouldn't have waffled on at the start. I'm losing my voice now. I think. My God, the longest podcast in history. Two wafflers going at it.
I know. What have we done? I know. There's me saying, yeah, I'll try and keep it under an hour. It's not happening.
Tell you what, it's lucky I got up at bloody 6:30. Imagine if I came on now. Well, you would have been like your wife would have waken up and go, "What have you been doing, Richard? Why?" Daughter comes in, you're like, "Go back to bed." You're like, "Daddy, it's time for breakfast."
Yeah, let's do bouncing now. No.
Oh no, God.
Yeah. No, it's I'm losing all my trails of thought now. No, it's been great. Like I said, the time scale difference is obviously not time scale. Yeah, I've got the word scale in my head now. The time
It gets in there, doesn't it?
what have you done to me? The time zone
Break.
difference has obviously been tricky because what are you, 9 hours ahead of me? I think.
9 hours ahead. Yes.
So
Different sides of the globe, but we've managed to make it work, which I think is fantastic.
it is
And it's been a
fantastic.
pleasure. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. I felt like it's a long time in the making, So
It is.
we'll have
And
to we'll definitely have to talk about our plans for our future podcast. I reckon we've definitely. I don't think the editing is going to be thrown back and forth, though. I don't think anyone's going to want to do that.
yeah, with no editing. If it's not live recorded, it's not happening.
Oh yeah, I think we'll just have to do like a live podcast and just cut off the mic after
Yeah.
just and then we can just look at the statistics to see if anyone ever tunes in longer than 3 minutes.
Just pick a random subject out of a hat. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just waffle for an hour.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining me. It's been a fantastic chat, and I really appreciate you giving a key away to the listeners. And remember, everybody, if you want to win a copy of the game, I can't remember what minute it was in now because seems like about 3 hours ago.
Do you want me to repeat it one last time for everybody so they can get a little
Yeah.
reminder? Okay,
Yeah. Okay. So you're going to read these. So if you can solve this riddle, the first person to get the answer will win a copy of the game.
And message me on Twitter.
And then message, yes, MF Product on Twitter. Send a message, and you'll get a key.
Wonderful. Okay, so the riddle is: with no wings I fly, with no eyes I see, with no arms I climb, more frightening than any beast, stronger than any foe. I am cunning, ruthless, and tall. In the end, I rule all. What am I?
Wonderful. Cool. Okay. I don't have the foggiest, so I'm not winning anything. Wow. There we go. So to you, that was probably about an hour and a half long. To us, that was about a 4.5 hour conversation. So we had a blast chatting to each other. So thank you so much, Aaron, and thank you so much for giving away a key on the podcast. It's very kind of you. If you're listening and you have entered the competition, then good luck to you. I hope you win. So I've got a couple of things just to go over before I won't keep you too much longer. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for all the tweets and the reviews that have been coming. It's very kind of you. It's been fantastic. So this week's review comes from the Kelsum, and they've given us a 5-star review. Thank you very much. It's titled "Literally the Best Podcast." And they say these episodes dive deep in with developers about their upcoming indie games. Learn all about the interesting things that happen during the development process, check out some awesome new indie titles, and maybe even just listen in on a fun chat. Best podcast ever. Smiley face. Wow, look at this. So thank you so much, Skelson, for leaving that. It's really kind of you. If you do want to leave a review for the podcast, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. You can find the link to the Apple review system in the show notes somewhere. If you can leave a review anywhere else, that is fantastic. But I honestly don't know if you can on Google and Spotify. I know you can't. So I appreciate all the reviews that have been left so far. So thank you so much. Other than that, I do want to point you to the Indie Gaming X YouTube channel, because after this episode was recorded, I got a little bit creative with some video editing. Now, I cannot edit videos, so as you'll probably see, but I just had great fun editing a video for Dungeon Scale. I created a little 2-minute video for you to check out. So please head to YouTube, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's pretty funny, even if I do say so myself. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Aaron again. And until next time, goodbye.
One of my ideas for a game trailer was to have, like, like, you know how they have those really artsy, like, Calvin Klein adverts where you can't really tell what it's about, it's just got all these people and it's black
Yeah,
and white
it could
imagery.
literally be
I was
about
gonna
anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna have, like, a closing door, like a bird chirping, like a panning shot of something, and then just, like, right at the end, just go, "Dungeon Scale."
Smell the dungeon.
Smell the dungeon. Halfway through, like, hire a voice actor so it sounds, like, real legit.
Yeah, yeah. Hold my beer. It's rather dark in here. Moist. Smell the dungeon. What the hell is this bloke doing? Dungeon Scale. Out now.